What's up, legends? Welcome to Friday Q&A for another week. I just want to say really quickly a massive thank you to everybody who went and checked out the brand new Ragdoll single, Rust. I love making these videos. I love noodling around on guitar and pulling tones, but really the thing that I love the most is actually making music. So the fact that so many of you went out of your way to check it out, and the fact that so many of you genuinely seem to like it really warms up my cold, bitter, cynical heart. So thank you guys so much for that. We had a really great show last Friday. It's always a little bit terrifying playing a brand new song live for the first time, but we managed to not butcher it too much, so that's a big plus. But you guys are here for the Q&A, not to hear me thank the Academy and things like that, so let's get straight into it. Can we check out your cab room? Yeah, let's check out my cab room. So this is where I normally sit and do my thing in the studio, and then if we come over here, there's some amps, there is PA stuff for gigs, and over here there's a cab room where I've got at the moment a Mesa 212 sitting on top of a Marshall 4x12 TV with greenbacks, and this mighty thing is called a Dynamount. It's essentially a microphone robot. You can check out my review and demo of this on my channel. The other thing that makes a big difference in here is all this tontine that I basically lined all the walls with and all the corners. You can see there, this is just basically a storeroom. As you can see, there's like a bunch of crap and goes out into the yard there, but let's see if this adjusts. Yeah, basically what I'll do is, let me close this door. When I'm miking an amp, I'll get this bit of tontine here and I will just bring it around. And once I got the mic position that I like, really scientifically, just kind of do that so that I can deaden everything, and you know, the speaker can still throw there, but it's very isolated, and I found it works really well. I've got another cab back out in the main room that I sometimes swap out for this one. So cables, is a speaker cable down here, as you can see. So that comes around here and goes back out. I really should drill a hole in the wall so that I don't have to do this long cable run. And the cables come out here, and boo. I also just picked up this mic pre as well, a little Neve clone. Or I've got my Apollo Twin down here, which I can run. And that is the magic of the cab room. It's right through that wall there. What do I think about Epiphone? Yeah, they make some really good guitars, and I think they are probably one of the best things about Gibson at the moment, where their higher end Epis are really solid, consistent guitars. Just about every single one that I've played, my buddy Quaid has a couple of them that I've played recently, and they kick ass. Yeah, I really should have mentioned them in the Gibson alternative thing, but to me they're just, you know, they're the Gibson with a different badge because they're made overseas. But Epiphone are putting out some killer stuff at the moment. I think it was like the Stealth or the Prophecy or something one of my students has. It's like a V-shaped kind of thing. No, not a V, an Explorer shape kind of thing with EMGs, and that's a killer modern guitar. Same thing for their Ultra. That was the one, the Epiphone Les Paul Ultra that I played a while ago. Seriously good instrument, seriously well priced. Input impedance, let's talk to the experts. I was able to answer this question by heading around to Artifactory and chatting to my good mate, JC from Anarchy Audio. So let's talk about impedance. So rather than try to explain this concept to you guys, I'm just going to go straight to the professionals. We've got Johnny from Anarchy Audio here, and we're going to explain, well, he's going to explain impedance to all you guitar players out there and to me.
Okay, well, let's show it with the middle zone, yeah?
Why not?
We'll use some professional equipment and show you what exactly input impedance means. Come, follow me. So your guitar signal is a pissy little stream. So as you can imagine, when you go into the middle zone, not much happens, but when you add a bit of
all jokes aside, essentially, when you've got low input impedance and high impedance interacting in that way, you can sort of think about it like a hose and pressure. And, you know, if you've got low pressure at one point and high pressure at another point, there's going to be a natural physical phenomena that with circuits we experience as loading. So basically, high impedance is good because you avoid that loading effect. But I mean, really, it's all about just running a high-pressure hose into a metal zone, right? The question of stainless frets and fret height pops up fairly regularly, so this is kind of like an amalgam of a bunch of different questions, but I thought I would show you guys this curious little thing. I recently borrowed a 50th anniversary Strat that had been refretted with stainless frets that were like one size bigger than the size that I had on my 77 Strat. Otherwise, all the fingerboard like radius specs are the same. I know it's a maple fretboard versus a rosewood fretboard. This isn't about the tone, but check out this difference between the two guitars with essentially the same setup. The only real difference is the fret height. So I mentioned this to my buddy Tim at MT Guitars, and he basically said, bring it around, we'll chuck the same frets on, and this is what it did to my 77 Strat. Since that is a vintage radius fretboard on a Strat, and I'm used to playing like, you know, 12-inch radius and up, essentially Gibson-style guitars, that little fret height thing made a big difference because I like to bend and overbend on those top strings on a Strat. And for the week that I've had those frets on there, I think they're definitely a stayer. And the difference in tone and feel with stainless frets, I don't know, you know, it's one of those things where some people are probably going to hear something, some people are probably not going to hear anything, but I just love the way they feel. They're just so slick. That's the way I would describe them. It makes everything kind of feel like a super high-end guitar, and that Strat was a real dog until I got it refretted. And now that it's got stainless frets, I probably don't have to worry about having it refretted for like another decade, which in my book is definitely a big plus. Talking about influences, well, as a player, I think if you've heard me play, somebody dubbed this like the Olympic style of guitar playing, that like very heavily influenced by the 80s. Like I love Paul Gilbert and Warren DeMartini and George Lynch and John Sykes and, you know, Reb Beach and all those classic absolute shred monsters. But as a player, when it comes to like my overall style when I'm not soloing, I would probably pin it down to Ty Tabor from King's X. I just love everything about his playing. Alex Lifeson from Rush, again, such a creative player. And just for like the mojo factor, John Sykes these days. But as a formative influence, I would have to say Paul Gilbert, because his Intense Rock series of DVDs, I learned everything on there, and like the way I pick and the way I attack the strings has a lot to do with Paul. But there's just so many players, and nowadays, you know, I just saw this interview with Joe Bonamassa where he was talking about practicing and how this like stunt guitar phenomenon of the internet really puts him off. And I mean, Joe's kind of like the ultimate clickbait generator. Like, I'm sure him and his PR team have been like, let's say something that will annoy everybody on the internet so they remember that we're here. And it's a very clever tactic. And he's an incredible player, obviously. But, you know, the internet and something like Instagram or YouTube is kind of just the new guitar store. Like, you know, you go there, you watch someone absolutely ripping it up, and you probably get really inspired to do it. Like, I was watching a bunch of videos by one of my ex-students, Miles Green, who should definitely go and check him out. And he's just absolutely tearing it up. Like, he's playing at Olympic levels, you know. He's even beyond that. He was playing the solo to Tornado of Souls, like, perfectly. And it really inspired me. It made me want to pick up my guitar and practice, seeing this young guy absolutely rip it up and just love playing. And that's the thing for me. Anytime I see somebody who really plays with this kind of joy. You know, when you watch Eddie Van Halen play guitar and he's smiling and it's just oozing out of him, you can't not be excited about it. That's the thing nowadays that really inspires me. And so that's as a player. And as a writer, if you go and listen to Ragdoll, you can hear the influences in there of like Rush and King's X and a bunch of modern heavy stuff and electronic music and blues and classical music. Like I spend a lot of time listening to, I really shouldn't say classical, I guess it's sort of like early modern music like Bartok and Stravinsky, but I also love a lot of the film score stuff, especially I've been smashing Joe Hisashi, who does a lot of the Studio Ghibli films. Oh, that guy writes some really, really beautiful music. I guess almost simple folk music influence, but with this gorgeous orchestration. So I would encourage people to go and check that out. Yeah, you know, all the good stuff. There's always going to be crap music out there. Don't focus on it. Focus on the music that makes you excited. If I had to build an 80s rock and metal rig using only ingredients from that era, there's quite a bunch of stuff that you can get now for pretty good prices on the used market. You know, I talked about the 80A MP1 earlier in the week when I did a video with that. So I think if you were going for an ultimate 80s rig, having an MP1 in there, or maybe like a Mesa Studio preamp, if you were going for more of the like Lukather thing, I would basically just go with like MP1, IntelliFX, some kind of stereo tube power amp, maybe like a PV Classic 5050, or I've got a Mesa 250 that I managed to get pretty cheap, and then run that into like a pair of stereo 212s or something like that, or a 412, or 3 412s if you're going to go totally over the top. That's totally unrealistic though. Or maybe, you know, 3 1x12 so you can do a wet, dry, wet thing. You would need another power amp to do that. But yeah, do that. The MP1 just nails those 80s tones. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. The IntelliFX I think is really cool because it's got the analog drive-through. It's got the 8-voice chorus, and you can pick them up really, really cheap. So MP1 and IntelliFX, or an MP1 and like an Alesis Quad Reverb would be another classic one from that era. You don't have to spend a whole bunch of money and get like a vintage Lexicon PCM70 unless you really, really want to. Or just get an Axe-Fx and do all of these kind of things in one box. This isn't a question from YouTube, but this is a question one of my students asked me during the week. And you get this every now and then. It's like, what's the fastest thing that you can play? And just because I'm a show-off clown, I figured I would try and play the same lick, which is a classic sixes-based thing at a couple of different tempos. So I reckon the fastest I can play this consistently is maybe 150 beats per minute, playing 6 notes per click. So that's about 15 notes per second, which is probably like the minimum entrance level for shredding, if you wanted to call it that. And then I'll try it at 160 and 170, and you will see the wheels fall off my playing. And there we go, that's Q&A for another week. We are going to have another Q&A next week, so if you have specific questions you would like me to answer, please get them in the video description. I didn't have time to get to everybody's questions this week, but I will do my best to do it for next week. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.